Hey, man.
Happy New Year!
You took my joke.
That's pretty good. I thought it was funny. I wanted to do it.
Yeah. How'd you spend your New Year?
Well, you're not gonna believe this, right?
Yeah, tell me about
I got
it.
stabbed, and so it's pretty crazy that we're doing this in my hospital room right now. I can't laugh; it hurts. Oh no, I'm in so much pain.
Oh
New
man,
Year's was crazy, and honestly, it was me who did it. It was a dare. It was a New Year dare.
Hey, can I tell you something?
I said, I don't want to end 2022. You know, I said, I've never broken a bone and I've never been stabbed.
Yeah.
And you were like, well, you can do both of those.
Tonight.
Yeah. And so I broke a bone in Sydney, Australia. And then I flew to Vegas. And
got stabbed.
Got stabbed by myself, like right in my lung, punctured a lung, you know?
Yep. So, I mean, that's great.
You know?
Well,
bring it in the new year.
Totally unrelated.
Sure.
I dare you in like a month and a half to stab yourself.
Great. That's my birthday.
No.
We're recording this in November. We're recording this pretty far in the past. So
yeah, welcome to the past.
You know my favorite thing about recording episodes lately?
What?
Is we are so far ahead that by the time it comes out and I really listen to it, I go, man, we made some jokes back then. I just forgot. I forget everything we said.
Yeah, if you guys could shut up. I know your iPhone doesn't work.
He's ruder than I am. I'm so sorry. So y'all know, if you block Tim's camera, that is what comes out of him. Just rage.
No, I really want to hit this. I want this in the episode. This is interesting. This is really interesting.
So
I really want this. This one's an interesting one.
I'm here against my will. Things I learned last night.
Anyways, have you ever heard of Nolan Bushnell?
What?
Have you ever heard of Nolan Bushnell?
Nolan Bushnell?
Nolan Bushnell.
Okay, Bushnell is not one word, it's two. Bushnell?
No, it's one word.
Oh.
Nolan K. Bushnell.
No.
K is a word, not a letter.
Okay.
It is a letter, but in this context,
it's a word.
But it's also still in this context a letter because it starts with the K.
So,
Nolan K.
What if his middle name was Nolan QUE? You know?
K.
Nolan K. Nolan K. Bushnell. It starts with a K. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, quay.
Gosh, I hate that joke so much.
What?
Okay. No, Nolan Bushnell. He's famous for something.
Oh.
He started a company you might have heard of called Atari.
Atari. Oh.
And
yeah, that's the theory that these buildings are old.
What?
Yeah, Atari. Tartaria.
Oh my
Ataria. That's a conspiracy.
A Tartaria.
Yeah.
No.
He started Atari.
He started Atari and did a lot of other things that I'm really excited to tell you about. But first, let's talk about his life. So he was a kid once, born in 1943.
He was a kid. That's been my favorite dad joke lately, by the way. I meet kids at shows.
Yeah.
And, you never know how to have a conversation with an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
You know?
That's tough.
So I always just go, how old are you? And they go, I'm 8. And they're always so loud.
Yeah.
And so they go, I'm 8. And I go, oh, okay. I was like, oh, I was 8 once. And they go, huh. And their parents laugh at it and they go, their brains don't get it.
Yeah. I volunteer at kids' church, and I do that. But instead of saying I was 8 once, I
volunteer to save the whales. I volunteer to fight climate change. So that's what you know. I know that
who volunteers better.
Who
does better volunteer work?
I volunteer a lot. I volunteer at Tennessee volunteer games. I'm a volunteer.
Yeah. Who's your favorite player? Oh, I'm not a fan. I'm just a volunteer.
I'm just a volunteer. I'm here to serve.
Can I open a door for you or something?
How old are you? Really, I was 38 once. That's crazy. I hate this. So Nolan was a kid.
Yeah, Nolan was a kid. So here's the thing.
He grew up like people do.
Growing up, his dad was a cement worker. Made cement. And
okay.
His dad was like kind of a handyman.
Sure.
So there's just always stuff lying around. He said the good thing about having stuff lying around is you could build stuff out of it. And so like he was like a crafty kid. And so he started crafting all these different things as a kid, like making little inventions. One of his proudest moments was he, in third grade, he took a jacket and he put a flashlight in the front and a red light in the back, and then wired the jacket down to the pocket so he could have his hand in his pocket and turn on his brake light and turn on his headlights. So people wouldn't run into him the hallway.
You're not joking.
I'm not joking. I'm 100% serious.
I'm going to be honest. If my kid comes to the living room and is like, look, I made this, I'm going to go, one day you're going to be really rich, but today you're going to get beat up.
Yeah, today you're going to get punched in the teeth.
And you're going to deserve it. Okay.
Yeah, you earned that beating.
Yeah. The only thing worse is if you're in the hallway and you go, red light, green light. And like you're following traffic rules in the hallway. That's a weird kid.
Yeah, you turn.
Like,
he installs a blinker.
That he's honking at people with his mouth. You know, he's like. She's like, "Would you just get in here?" He's like, "I gotta wait for the light to change." And she has to walk over and change the light so that he will walk into the classroom. And then he parallel parks into his desk.
Yes, the glasses with the mirrors, and he's backing in.
He hits people.
He doesn't leave a note.
He just drives away. He hits and runs.
Yeah,
we got a really big problem with this guy who keeps hitting and running kids in the middle school. He just freaking. He broke his arm. He's like, I think it's totaled, guys.
It's totaled. Hey, you're just a little scratched. He's literally walking by scratch kids. It's just a scratch.
It's a dent. Jeez.
Is he just like door checking people with his elbow now?
Just, like, oh, sorry. Maybe you'll leave some more room next time. He's
taking up two desks.
A mini squeegee for his glasses. Oh, man.
All right. Yeah, so there's that. He did that.
He did. Well, I mean,
he tried to sell it, but none of his friends were interested in buying it.
Okay.
He's like, I'll make you one. And they were like,
okay,
get away from me. And then shortly after that, his dad died. And that was really hard on him. I watched a documentary on G4. Did you remember G4? Did you get G4?
What?
It was like a gaming channel.
Oh.
Like a video game channel.
No.
It was pretty bad. It doesn't exist anymore.
Pretty bad how? Like just bad quality or like inappropriate?
It was like kind of misogynistic. Like it was like a video game channel, and like it was very clearly made by a bunch of like middle-aged white dudes in 98, you know?
Oh, you got it.
Yeah. And so it was rough.
I think about that with that show that was MTV, like Girl Code and Guy Code.
Oh yeah, it was a product of that era.
And then you're like, wow, how was this a show? You know?
Yeah. That G4 was. Yeah, there's a lot of famous GIFs from G4 that are like weird. Anyways, but G4 had
one
a documentary.
One day that'll be us. Just poorly aged content. Stuff that's like, wow, if they knew then.
They're making fun of the jacket with the brake lights. But we all have
walking around with. Yeah, in 2007, our shorts said juicy, and now they say stop. Yield. You've got a yield to pedestrian on the back of your pants. Bright yellow pants.
Gotta keep myself safe out in the streets. Oh my gosh. It's for the Teslas. They can't see without the bright colors.
Yeah. Jeez.
No.
I hate the dystopian nightmare that we would all have to wear bright colored clothes so that the automatic cars don't hit us. Jeez, dude, that's dark. That is dark.
Yeah. Hey, what are you wearing? You can't wear that. That's dark.
Yeah, well,
your clothes need to be brighter.
Yeah. Here. Just carrying around an extra rain jacket with you.
Don't worry, I got a bright shirt. Yeah, so I was watching this G4 documentary
about how his dad's death really impacted him.
Yeah, and he was that narrator. I'm sure you've heard that narrator. He narrated a ton of like documentary stuff from the 2000s on like History Channel and Discovery. No, the narrator that was talking about it. And in this, he was like, and then his dad died, and it was a big impact on his life. And it was like, why are you talking like that?
That's not
like he did like all the like VH1 home tour shows.
No, I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah.
And it was a big impact on his life. So then he started Atari.
Well, and his life was going really good until he got the diagnosis from his doctor. You're like, oh, that's not, you shouldn't say that.
Why are you talking like that?
Yeah. Up next.
He's got like one tone.
Wait till he finds out his wife's secret. You're like, well, no, like, you can't say this. Would you rather that, or would you rather like the dramatic TLC guy who's like, up next?
Oh yeah,
but it's like never dramatic.
It's never
like they've just switched.
Yeah, that'd be a good episode of Trading Spaces.
Wife swap.
The family where everyone talks like that, like super high energy, and the family where everyone's super dramatic. Yeah. Anyways, so his dad died, and that was like a big impact on him because his dad was like super creative.
Sorry. Yeah. So that was rough.
Yeah. So he was kind of one of those kids who kind of just was like a business mogul, you know? Like he invented the jacket, nobody bought it.
Yeah, just an entrepreneur.
He was like selling. He would go door to door selling like strawberries or something.
Yeah.
Like
I did this as a kid.
You sold strawberries?
I sold Reese's peanut butter cups.
Interesting.
25 cents each.
25. Did you make money?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm proud of you.
Yeah. I bought the dozen packs for like $4 or whatever.
Interesting.
And then sold them for 25 cents. You know what I mean? $1 a pack. You know, I didn't understand profit margin back then. I knew I made more than what I bought it for. But I should have done at least 50 cents a piece. You know?
Well, he made the jackets, and after making the jacket and nobody wanted it, he was messing around with the jacket, trying to modify it and make it more interesting for people. And he realized that if he took the 9-volt battery and modified that 9-volt battery a little bit and put a switcher on it, he could make a little shocker, like basically. And he said those flew off the shelves.
That'll sell, baby. Speaking of tased.
Oh, God. By now, it should have happened. I mean, by the time this episode comes out.
If you're listening to this and he hasn't been tased yet, well, I mean, you know what you did on New Year's.
Yeah. I stabbed Jaron and then I got tased for it.
10 minutes till midnight. Time for Tim to get tased.
I want us to start a reality TV show and have that guy narrate it.
No, I just want us to start a reality TV show. But, okay. So he modifies a battery, makes a little shocker, and he's selling this. What age is he selling this at?
This is 10.
This is still why he's like a kid.
Yeah, he's a kid. He's a child.
I can tase people.
He's like, I could give this to my friends and they'll buy it. So started selling that, got really into ham radio, was playing around with that. This is the 50s, right?
Sure.
Well, honestly, the 40s, late 40s, early 50s. And so he's really into all this stuff, right? Ends up going to Utah State University for college, where he enrolls in engineering. And on the first day of school, freshman, he says, I know at an engineering school like this, obviously the professors all get their own office, and the grad students who have like part of their graduate program is to teach a course, they get an office. And so he goes to where all the offices are in the university, brings a bunch of books,
and then just sits down,
makes a sign that has his name on it, and puts it on the wall outside of the room, and then just puts a bunch of books in there and just is hanging out in the office. And he said, sure enough, a graduate student walked in and was like, hey, I think this is, and he's like, oh, we must be office mates. And he's like, here, and like scooted all his books over and his desk. And he's like, I think there's another desk down the hall. You can pull that in. And so he's like, I got an office my freshman year and shared an office with this graduate student. And because of that,
That's what we did here.
yeah, what you guys don't know is this is over here. This is a T-Mobile office.
Yeah. Like their sales office.
Yeah.
Like people are coming in for customers. Or please be quiet.
Yeah, if you guys can shut up. I know your iPhone doesn't work.
He's ruder than I am. I'm so sorry. Yeah. We're going to key your car. So. Anyway.
Yeah, so he got himself an office his freshman year, and this opened up a big door for him.
That's a parasite. That's interesting. Okay.
What do you mean, a parasite?
Yeah. Like, just kind of moves into somebody else's space and just slowly takes it over.
Well, he didn't take it over. What happened was he was able, because of having this office space, he was treated like he was a graduate student.
Oh my gosh.
And so he got welcomed into this engineering program for all the graduate students, and they got to work on some high-level projects, and he got to have FaceTime with some important people in the university that a freshman shouldn't have.
Yes.
So that was a big networking.
Guys, who's that 12-year-old looking guy who keeps tasing people?
Yeah, with the blinker on his jacket.
Yeah. He's a grad. Okay. I
bought a jacket from him.
He's got an office. Yeah, they're all wearing.
They're all wearing jackets.
And we don't even care if he's not a grad student. He's cool.
Yeah, he's got cool jackets. And so he's studying engineering. Not doing well at it though, because he
as a freshman.
Yeah, well, he was doing a couple things. One, he was obviously working on all these engineering projects that were for grad students, right?
Sure.
But two, he learned that there was this entertainment center, like what's the word I'm looking for? A theme park. That was hiring, and it was like the place in town that was like the fun place to work, right?
Sure.
And so he's like, well, they don't pay anything. It's dirt cheap, but it's
he showed up. There was a desk. He sat down. The owner of the park comes in, and he's like, "This is my." And he goes, "We must be office buddies. We must be
office mates."
And he goes, "Oh." So he started designing roller coasters.
Yeah, they started,
and none of them worked correctly. Killed so many people. He killed a lot of people,
and they ended up hiring him to build Disney World.
And they fired the original owner because they thought it was his fault. Right? And so then he's out here he's still building coasters to this day.
And they're really bad. But yeah, so then that's why that was
next on Coaster Disasters. That was the show. Is that guy?
He's just
like, oh man.
No, so he found out about the amusement park.
Sure.
They paid nothing. It was $1 an hour,
wow.
Which at the time was minimum wage, but it was $1 an hour. But he found out you could make commissions here for games if you could get people to play games.
Okay.
And so they had like theme park games and quarter a play, and he would get a commission off that. And he got really good at selling those games, so much so that he eventually got promoted to night manager and learned a ton about running a gaming business. And how those quarter a play, and like you want to make sure he's like you want to make sure no one plays more than 3 minutes, and so it's like you got to keep it quick. And you got to keep that turning over. Like understood the profit margins, understood managing teams. He said he had 160 employees he was managing at night. All the payroll, all the stuff. Like he was managing all that at night. And so he's like, I look back at that as my MBA. He said I learned everything I needed to learn.
Yeah.
In that program. And then so he graduated because he spent so much time working on this job, and he was working on a bunch of other random little side projects like he does, building jackets, electro jackets.
Yeah.
And weird things like that. And so he graduated college with a 1.9.
Nice.
Barely skated by.
Yes.
And his placement officer at his school was like, you're going to have a really tough time finding a job. And he's like, I took that as a challenge. And so he went.
He's like, well, I mean, it's pretty easy to get an office. We're in mine right now. And she was like, this is my office. He goes, buddies.
Huh. Oh, we're office.
I guess we're office mates.
We're coworkers.
Yeah. He just slowly takes other people's jobs.
So
he turns around and goes, it's gonna be pretty hard for you to find a job. And she's like, I have this. Well, according to your transcript, you have a 1.9. And like just slowly takes over other people's lives.
Yeah, just waits for the advisor to go out to lunch.
And
takes their
takes
desk.
the office.
And this is me. Yeah. And then, how How many people do you have to get in on it for someone to believe that? Like they come back from...
How many people do what?
How many people in the office do you have to get in on that joke for that person to believe it?
Well, I don't know. Let's find out. What do we got? How many people got downstairs? You know?
I don't know who you are at all. This guy's been doing this job this whole time.
He's been here for 10 years.
Yeah,
and it's like an 8-year-old kid. It's like he's been here for 10 years. Hey, thanks for being here for this episode of Things I Learned Last Night. If you like this and you want to check out other episodes, please go through our back catalog. There is literally like 100 and something episodes that you can go check out. One of my favorites is Stanley Meyer, a guy who allegedly invented a water-powered vehicle and then took that invention everywhere and then mysteriously died. So we go through the whole theories of what could have happened to him or like why his idea was plausible, not plausible. Really great episode. But other than that, thank you so much for being here and checking out this one.
So he goes, he said he knew what the valedictorian of his class.
Sure.
He was literally the last, like, I think he said 247 out of 247 students. He was the lowest performing student in his school.
Yeah, the penultimate, if you will.
The ultimate, apparently. And so he knew what the valedictorian got offered. And so he's like, I'm going to look for a job that pays $20 more an hour.
Okay.
And so he puts together his resume of everything he's done in his life.
Yeah.
From the coat to the shocker thing to some ham radio stuff to everything from whatever. And then just kind of buries his 1.9 GPA in his resume, right?
Sure, it's in there.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, I didn't do good in school, but look at how good I did at everything else. And so eventually he was able to go to a company called Ampex and get $25 more an hour than the valedictorian of his class. And he's like, honestly, he said the pay was great. And
But what felt great was going back to that advisor's office.
He said that
actually showed up at their house, at their front door, Saturday night,
and
11 p.m.
I said, how much do you make an hour?
You want to come work for me?
So anyways, so he went to work for this company called Ampex, which
Okay.
I just need to highlight Ampex for a second.
Sure.
This is an
I have their
electronics
credit card.
company. Oh gosh, this is an electronics company started by Stop it. Started by Alexander M. Poniatoff. Poniatoff. It's abbreviated Ampex because it stands for Alexander M. Poniatoff Excellence. Ampex.
I hate him. That's pretty funny. LLC.
Oh, that's great. He's working at Ampex.
Sure.
And he makes friends with a guy named Ted Dabney.
Ted Dabney Excellence.
Ted Dabney, also known as Samuel Frederick Ted Dabney Jr.
Oh, gosh.
So he goes by Ted.
Sure.
But while he's there, Ted and him... Get your feet off the table.
No, you had your feet up. I figured I'd put mine up.
My feet are not on the table. And so while they're there, they get a
You want to get comfortable.
okay, fine, whatever, man. And so while they're there, they both get they both get really into video games.
Mm-hmm.
Video games at this point are, oh my gosh. Get out of here with that.
What? I'm just sitting comfortable. So y'all know, if you block Tim's camera, that is what comes out of him. Just rage. Okay. So what are they doing?
So they get into video games.
Sure.
This is very early video games.
Yeah. What was the first video game?
So this is the interesting question. So at the time, there were video games, but they were different than what we think about today. There's not like a computer running all these processes. They were actual flappers moving switches and stuff to display scores and movements on your screen. So it's a very kind of like primitive radar.
Rudimentary? Yeah, sure.
There was actually a game that was developed while...
Do you have any pictures of what like an original game would look like?
Yeah, let me see if I can actually pull up. So while...
Okay.
While Nolan was in college, there's this game that came out called Space War.
Okay.
Let me see if I can. Oh, here we go.
Yeah. What's the first video game? Do we know?
Here's just the thing that's interesting. Maybe we should do an episode on it. Space War was essentially like a modified radar computer screen. And it was just a bunch of lights that you fought on your computer, similar to like a Space Invaders type game.
Okay.
And when Nolan was in college...
Now, did you have to have this whole setup to play this one game?
Yeah.
Wow.
When Nolan was in college, one of his friends called him into the computer lab. And
What's happening in the reflection of this screen? I'm so sorry. But you see the guy standing on a chair, right? You see the guy, hands behind his back, standing. You see that, right? It looks like a mental patient because he's like in a robe.
He's like tied up.
Like he's in beige tan pants.
Tied up.
He looks tied up. That's what I'm saying.
And then there's 3 dudes huddled around the computer.
Lab coats.
Like with their arms around each other.
This
like they're
looks
posing
straight
for
out
a
of Montauk. And he's standing on a chair. This is the Stanford prison experiment at the same time. I'm so sorry. That's such a side. And if you're an audio listener, this doesn't make sense at all. But I couldn't get past it.
The reflection on the screen is weird. It's really
There's
weird.
no explanation.
I could not tell on my computer that there was something going on. Anyways, so it's a Space Invaders like game.
Okay.
And this was,
it's big. Like it's the size of like a desktop computer.
Yeah, this was early. This was like the 70s. And essentially all it is it's just little pixels firing lights, and then you've got this thing that's firing at the lights. And one of his friends called him into the computer lab one night and was like, "Hey, you got to check this out. I'm gonna blow your socks off." And showed him this, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy.
My socks are gone."
And his thought was, because he was working at the amusement park, he's like, if I could have this in an amusement park, I would make a fortune.
Yeah.
The problem was these computers were super expensive that they had this game on.
For sure.
Some kid at MIT made this game. I don't know. They didn't like sell it. It was just like a science fair project.
Sure.
And so, but that's not like the games we think of today. Like it's not like coded. It's like a hardware game. And so there's actually switches that were firing when you're playing that game, which is kind of crazy. And so they remembered that game while they were working at Ampex, and they tried to recreate it. And they did. They recreated a game called Computer Space. And they tried to sell it as like a coin-operated game for like arcades. But it didn't really work. No one really wanted it. And I shouldn't say it didn't really work, because it worked a little bit. Like it wasn't what they expected, because over time, like they got an investor to invest in it to manufacture it.
Sure.
And over time, it ended up doing $3 million in sales, which is good.
Over time,
yeah, which is good, but it wasn't like
didn't keep them in business. Wasn't sure.
It wasn't a huge success. But good enough to where they're like, hey, maybe we could do this. And so the two of them, they left this Ampex, and they started,
Atari.
No, it's Noted X. Nolan Bushnell and Ted.
What is
Dan
with
B.
them trying to
excellence?
No, you're joking.
But that was taken, so they settled for Atari.
Wait, are you joking?
No, I mean kinda. They originally the game that they wanted to go with was, and here's what's they pronounce this.
Sure.
SYZYGY.
Suzuki.
I think so. But that was taken.
What?
There was already a company with that name, and so they couldn't copyright it or trademark it. So they went with Atari, which I didn't realize this. We did an episode about this, but I guess that is similar to when you're playing chess and you have a player in check. in the game Go, when you have a player in check, it's called Atari. You have them in Atari.
Oh, interesting.
And so that was Bushnell's favorite game was Go.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. I didn't know any of that. But yeah, so they named it Atari after that, after having players in check and Atari, and they started manufacturing arcade games was their plan. So they started with this computer science concept, and eventually they landed on the infamous Pong. And so they manufactured Pong.
Wow.
So that is what is often credited as the first video game. It wasn't. It was the first commercially successful video game.
Okay.
There was other games that were like science fair projects, kind of.
Sure.
And there was games that were, I guess this was the first software game. Is probably a better way to put it.
Okay.
But it's not even close to what they originally envisioned, which is interesting. I watched an interview with him, and he said that the plan was to have the full paddle and the full handle, and to have the motion be like a waving motion, like a ping pong paddle. And we built it, and we just had the top of the paddle. We didn't put together that waving motion, and we didn't put the handle on it yet.
Sure.
But we were playing it as in like a test with just the top part of the paddle, and we're like, this works. Why keep going? and so he said they were testing it, and as they were playing it, they made a lot of decisions. For example, the paddles were too big at first, so they cut it in half because it was too easy, so people could play longer. And so they made a bunch of decisions to cut down play time to make it a little bit quicker. And then it was a huge success. They put it. In fact, they didn't intend on selling this game. This was a proof of concept game for them to be like, this is what we can do.
Sure.
And they were going to take it to bars and clubs and around Silicon Valley and be like, look what we can. Yeah.
Stacy, come on. I got you a drink at the bar. Hold on. I'm busy playing Pong. That's the commercial.
High score.
High. But it's not the high. It's not the high score guy. It's high score. They couldn't afford. They couldn't afford somebody excited.
Yeah, that'll be $2,000 if I'm sad. 4,000 if you want me excited.
High score. What is this from the loser's perspective?
You beat me.
Congrats.
So their intention was to drop it in bars and be like, look, this can make you a lot of money. We're going to make you... What did you just say?
Ciziga.
Like, this can make you a lot of money. You want us to make you a game.
Sure.
And they dropped it in this bar. They actually drove it up to Chicago. Why he chose Chicago? Oh, he'd say they were trying to get it licensed, and so they dropped it in a bar in Chicago, and they were there for like a week. And the guy called back, the bar owner, and was like, "Hey, your machine's broken." And like, "What's wrong with it?" And they're like, "It won't accept any quarters." And so they went and checked on it. It was full. Yeah, and they're like, "Well, we can solve that problem." And so because of that, they're like, "Maybe
I can solve this problem. I'll take those quarters." Oh, we can solve that problem. Yep.
So
you just got to get a Q-tip in there and clean out all the quarters.
So they started making more of these, and we're like, yeah, we're just going to sell this.
Yeah.
This is our product. And he said that what they did is they went back and they made 3 more of them. But they had a problem where, because these weren't rich dudes that were just starting a company, they didn't have the money to manufacture these things. And so he said, we were building these machines in our like office space, and then we were selling them, and with the money we got from selling them, we were going and making the new ones and doing a little more every time. So we were pretty much doubling our inventory with every sale. And he said in our first year we did this 28 times.
Jeez.
And so they were doubling their inventory. And he said it literally was we took over a roller skating rink and we turned that into our manufacturing floor. And he said we literally, in the mornings...
Keep the disco ball, though.
It's about culture.
What is this, the 50s now?
This is like, I think the 70s at this point.
Oh, okay, the 70s?
Yeah, 72.
Yeah. And he's like, our workplace has, you don't get health benefits. Sure.
Yeah.
You know?
But every day at 2, we disco.
Every 10 minutes, there's a disco ball. And we all just...
And the guy comes and they still have the little like DJ stand in the thing. The lights turn down and the ball comes down. He's
and
like,
it's time for music.
It's time for the couples skate.
Could you be more excited?
We couldn't afford this exciting
We couldn't
DJ.
afford an exciting DJ. That guy did my wedding. Just, this is the bride and groom.
Yeah, hooray for the bride and groom.
Give it up for them. Yeah. 50% of marriages end in divorce. This guy sucks.
So he so they bought
So
these
they're in a roller skating rink.
they're in the roller skating rinks. He said that they would go every morning. He said we would walk into the unemployment office and we would just say, "Don't wait in line, come with us."
Follow me.
Yeah.
We don't care. That's dangerous. There's so many crazy people in the unemployment line.
Well, he actually said that. I watched the interview.
Yeah.
In the interview, he's like, most of them are crackheads.
No, I'm okay.
And he was like, but we hired a lot of them because we just needed them to build cabinets.
Yeah.
And
Think about that. If you're playing Pong, a crackhead touched it.
So they got into the business of just making games. So they started just making a whole bunch of games, selling out these cabinets. And some games were bigger than others. Some games were...
And they're just doing Pong at this point?
Well, they started out just doing Pong, and then they branched out to making other games. And so they started inventing all these other games. And
honestly, the technology behind Duck Hunt is pretty impressive.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's Nintendo, but...
Yeah. And eventually they branched out into the home entertainment system, which was a huge change.
Sure.
At the time, there's a bunch of people trying to get into that, like bring the arcade into the home. And what they were trying to do was it was a full console for a single game. The same thing you would have at an arcade. And they said, we were the ones who were like, no, it needs to be like a record player where you could change
multiple
out
games.
the game. And so he was like kind of an innovator in that. Eventually the company reached a $2 billion valuation.
Can you imagine if it was still like that it was like you'd buy a new console for whatever game you wanted to play?
Gosh, that would be a nightmare. Kids would play a lot less.
You say a $2 billion evaluation?
Yeah. Yeah.
In what year?
I think that was in the 80s.
Holy cow.
It was a huge company. But this was long. That was long after he sold out his
We got to invent something.
ownership. And so he was still on the board. It was employed by Atari, but he sold out his ownership because he realized there was two options. He's like, we hit a funding problem because we just didn't have the money to do as much of the things that we wanted to do. And so the options were either go public or sell out my ownership and then have like someone with just really deep pockets to fund everything we want to do. And so he sold out the majority of his ownership, stayed a part owner, stayed on the board, still worked there, but changed everything. While he was there, this is an interesting tidbit. One of his early employees was a guy named Steve Jobs. I don't know if you've heard of him. Don't look at me like, get out of here. Hired Steve Jobs.
That guy started Sajoex.
He's like, oh yeah, your company failed. Can we have the name?
Sajoex?
No, I was thinking your name, Steve Jobs. Can I take your name?
Oh. Well,
you can be Nolan Bushnell.
Well, there was a different Steve Jobs, but then the Steve Jobs that we know went into his office one day and sat down and said, no, this is a nice desk. I think it's mine.
I think this is my office now.
Good luck finding another job.
Yeah. And that Steve Jobs was just timid enough to say, okay. All right.
Yeah. And that Steve Jobs started Amazon. A weird dude in his mom's garage.
They're like, what do you want to call yourself now? Jeffrey.
Let's say it together.
Jeffrey
Bezos. Jeffrey Bezos.
Jeffrey Bezos.
That's a good name.
That's a good choice. I'm happy.
And that's why Amazon hates Apple. It's because Steve Jobs stole his identity. That's the unknown story.
Not a lot of people know that side of Apple. Yeah. Whew. That's what the bite means in the logo.
Jeez.
Steve
Jobs works there.
Steve Jobs worked for Atari. It was his only job he had before Apple. And funny little side story, I guess Steve never showered and was just all around a jerk at the time. And so a bunch of employees were complaining about him. And so
he smells bad. He's rude.
That guy stinks, and he stinks.
He stinks. He stinks. You can see the stench come off.
And so what Bushnell said is he said, well, everyone wanted me to fire him. And he said, well, what I did is I just moved him to the night shift. He's like, we didn't have a night shift. And so he kept working for us. He was just the only one in there at night. And he said the benefit of that, and he says, honestly, he said, one of my leading motivations for that is he said, Steve was a good programmer, but his friend Steve Wozniak was a better programmer. And I knew if Steve was working at night, his friend Steve Wozniak would come work on projects with him. And so I knew I would get 2 Steves for the price of 1. And so really both of the founders of Apple were working at Atari, but only one of them was getting paid. Which is just like the Apple story, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's an interesting. I guess Steve Jobs smells bad. That's the moral of the story.
That's what I heard.
Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. If you're enjoying it, make sure you subscribe. And while you're at it, leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening, leave a review. That stuff really helps a lot. It really boosts us in the algorithms and makes sure a lot more people get to see what we're doing. And so we appreciate that a ton. Leave that comment, leave that review, and we'll see you in the next episode. But long story short, Atari has a lot of success. Things are going great for Bushnell and the rest of the Atari clan. But while Bushnell's
What's Atari doing now?
They're kind of in the background.
That's right.
They still exist, but they're not innovative anymore, and they're not really making games anymore. They're more just selling like TV consoles for the old school games. They're like, remember when you used to love us? That's what they do.
But this nostalgia factor is such a you could ride that out.
Yeah, I mean it's
like Nintendo re-releasing the NES. Yeah,
they're still a business, but they're just not what they were.
Sure.
And so after the sale, Bushnell struggled at Atari a bit because now he had a boss, and he didn't take well to that. And his boss kept canceling all of his little pet projects because he was like, that's not profitable for us to just dump a bunch of money into this random crazy idea, which was what Atari had done the entire time it existed.
Sure.
He would do those crazy things that would make no money. And then he'd be like, well, that's a bummer. And then he would just move on to a new thing. And it was some crazy new thing.
Yeah.
And so he started having struggles with that. Eventually, he left his board seat to start his second company that he had been dreaming about since high school. The company...
Okay, Cupid? What are you telling? What is your weird?
The company was Chuck E. Cheese's, and
What? No way.
Yeah. Here's what I love about this. He really, 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 really wanted to work for Disney, and so after college, he was trying to get a job at Disneyland to build the robots.
Like, I'll make my own mouse.
Kinda. Because he wanted to build the robots. And so he kept applying, and they kept being like, bro, you had a 1.9 GPA. And he'd be like, fine, I'll go.
He's like, oh, you saw that?
I'll go work for Ampex. They're excellent.
So he started Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, because, and it was him and his buddy.
Do you know that Chuck E. Cheese on DoorDash is Pascoli's? Like they try to hide themselves as like a pizza place.
That they're Chuck E. Cheese.
So you could order like Pascoli's pizza on DoorDash and be like, what's this place called Pascoli's?
Yeah.
And then it shows up and nothing on the box would make you think it's Chuck E. Cheese.
That's awesome.
But if you're a DoorDasher, as I once was, then I was like, Pascoli's?
Where's
and
that?
I went and the address was
Chuck E. Cheese.
Good old Chuckard's Cheese.
I wonder if Pascoli's means like Chucky in French or something.
No,
like
it's
that.
the name of the chef robot.
Oh.
Pascoli.
That's even better.
Yeah, it's Pascoli's.
That's like naming it Ratatouille.
Yeah, kind of.
Which is oddly ties in pretty well. So the concept originally was Coyote's Pizza.
Okay.
Was what they named it. And his dream was a place where you could go and you could play video games and eat pizza. Because he had this dream before arcades existed.
Sure.
Even. He had the dream before even video games existed.
Before pizza existed.
Yeah, it was like a carnival game place in pizza.
Yeah.
Before pizza existed. He's like, here's what we need. We need a place with lots of great games.
Yep.
And we need pizza. And the reason he chose pizza is because
without all the youth pastor stuff, because he's almost describing church. We need games, pizza.
No youth pastors.
We need a godless place.
we need a godless games. He went to youth group once and he's like, how can I do this without God?
How can I take all the God out of this?
They have the band. They have a worship band.
That's
is
interesting.
Is there a theology at Chuck E. Cheese as well?
This
or is it fully like...
Well, I will say, in the 2000s, remember Chuck E. Cheese used to have that control room and you could push the buttons and they would say stuff over the speakers and you could control it. And that's like the voice of God or the preacher, I don't know. And you could have it say things to everyone in the store.
I volunteer there. I volunteer at Chuck E. Cheese.
I volunteer at Chuck E. Cheese every week.
No, I volunteer there.
Yeah, the kids ask me how old I am all the time.
I volunteer at kids ministry. Secular kids ministry.
Oh my gosh. No, what he said is, obviously the games are where the money's at.
Yeah.
Because you get a quarter play, there's money in that. And he said, but if we sell pizza, one, that's an extra revenue stream, not a huge one, but an extra revenue stream. But yeah, that's the idea is while they're waiting for the pizza to cook, it takes time for it to cook. It gets them in the door. It takes time for them to cook. Then they play a bunch of games while they're waiting for that to cook. And then they eat it. And then they're like, I want to play some more games. But what he knew is he said, if we have this thing where kids are just asking their parents, hey, can I go to that arcade and play games and eat pizza? Then the parents are like, I don't know if I want to go do that. Like, that's a hard sell.
We need a band for the parents to watch.
No, what he said is he said we need a character. We need to make an experience out of it because they want to go see Chucky. They're like, hey, can I go see Chucky? Then that's a thing. It makes it almost like Disney, where it's like, let me go see Chucky. And the parents are more likely to say yes to that. But before he had the idea for Chuck E. Cheese, it was Coyote. It was a Coyote's Pizza. And he wanted a coyote.
Live coyote.
Yeah. Let me go see the coyote. They just had in the
Most of them are
it was just a cage. It was a petting zoo.
I think it's coyote, but okay, I guess we'll go. That's a breakfast place. Coyotes.
Coyotes. Yeah.
Coyote meal.
So he went to this like a conference, like a costume conference.
There's no way this is real, right? This is the same story.
This is the same story. He went to like a costume conference, mascots conference. And while he was there, he bought this coyote costume. And he's like, here's the thing. I know my engineers could build these robots and get them to talk and play their instruments. He's like, but I don't think I can get them to make it look like a coyote. And so he's like, I'm going to buy a mascot costume.
Put the robot inside of it.
And put the robot inside the mascot
What
costume.
did the original one look like?
And so they bought, he went and he bought this costume. And they build it, and he comes in and he's like, hey, how's the coyote coming? And they're like, the what? And he's like, the coyote. And they're like, there's no coyote. And he's like, yeah, that mascot costume I brought you to make talk. And they're like, that's a rat. And he was like, what? And they bring it out and like, this is a rat. Look, it's got a tail. It's got the buck teeth. They're like, this is a rat. And he's like, oh, I thought it was a coyote. And he's like, well, that was a problem because my whole restaurant was going to be based around this mascot. And so he's like, so I had to change it. So he said, I changed it to Rat's Pizza. And I took it, he said, I took it to my marketing department. And my marketing department
was like, what, is this a joke?
Yeah, they're like, you can't call it Rat's Pizza. And so he's like, I told them, come up with a better name for the mascot. And they came up with Chuck E. Cheese's. And they're like, because you smile 3 times when you say it, Chuck E. Cheese.
That's what they said?
Yeah, that's what they said.
Terrifying.
Like,
what did the original one look like?
So yeah, I don't know if this is the first one.
That's not the original one.
I don't know if this is the first one, but
first of all, that's a coyote.
Early Chuck E. Cheese.
That's a coyote. It's like what Chuck E. Cheese. That's what Chuck E. looks like now.
No, it's not. Chuck E. looks totally different. Let me see if I can get a picture of the first Chuck E. Cheese.
Is that him?
Yeah, that's him.
Oh, wow.
That's him when he made Chuck E. Cheese early. So that's early Chuck E. Cheese. The new Chuck E. Cheese
so
looks
like
closer
literally
to the older Chuck E. Cheese.
What's that?
The new Chuck E. Cheese looks closer to the old Chuck E. Cheese. Have you seen the new Chuck E. Cheese?
No. What's the new Chuck E. Cheese look like?
I don't like the new Chuck E. Cheese. It's an imposter. Oh, actually, here's the 4 eras of Chuck E. Cheese.
This is the one I remember. The one you're showing right now is the one that I remember.
You do not remember this.
That guy?
You never went to a Chuck E. Cheese with a Chuck E. that looked like this. This was like 20 years before us.
No.
Well, if you did, then
year?
your Chuck E. Cheese was out of date.
What year?
This was like the 80s Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah. Okay.
We should have been that Chuck E. Cheese, that third Chuck E. Cheese.
No.
Or maybe the second.
I was going to say maybe the second one looks closer to that first one. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I remember this one.
I remember the third one the most. Maybe I was going to Chuck E. Cheese in high school.
Yeah, I don't remember this one at all. I'm saying I remember the red hat. Yes, I remember the red hat.
I don't remember the red. I remember
the cartoon logo on this.
I remember the logo in the second one.
Yeah,
but I don't remember the character.
I had just gotten back from World War II, and I remember going. That's what I remember.
Yeah, I don't know, but the new one,
this yellow one, the second one is what was in like the later 90s, early 2000s. Is second yellow one, right? First yellow one, they made that change probably 98, 99 probably.
No way. I think that was early.
100%.
This was. I remember going to Chuck E. Cheese and having
the new one looks like a Zootopia character.
It does. Yeah, they definitely were going for that. They were like, yeah, we need to make that more, modern,
less scary.
Yeah.
No, anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess you could see it if you look at that first one. You could see why he thought that was a rat or a coyote. I could see it.
I want to make all four of them on stage, and then the voice.
It's the Rat Pack.
Just goes. It's time for. I thought you were gonna finish it.
I don't know what you're saying.
Oh, I was trying to fill this thing off.
Oh, we're not ready yet.
This is such a long episode.
Yeah, you're trying to end it. We're not ready for the end.
Oh, how does it not end at Chuck E. Cheese?
I guess.
How does it not end at Charles, the cheese guy? What are you talking about? What's after this?
I mean, I guess, yeah.
Like
he started Chuck E. Cheese. He did some stuff. I guess the only other really interesting thing is that
he fiddled off the devil.
He had a lot of. He started a couple dozen other businesses.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like what?
Well, he got really into robots for a little bit. This wasn't successful, but these were like personal robots. They were going to bring you stuff from your fridge and things like that. He named them all. He started a really early version of Furbies. They were your pets, and they talked to you.
Okay.
But it wasn't Furby, and that didn't work. Point is, he started all these ideas in different businesses, and most of them didn't work out. He had Chuck E. Cheese and Atari that were giant winners, but everything else wasn't anywhere near as close of a winner.
Sure.
But he was always ahead of the curve. For example, in the 80s, he had computer shopping. And so they were laser discs. You could go buy this laser disc and put it in your computer, and you can order stuff on your laser disc and then bring your laser disc back and turn it in, and then they would ship it to you.
That's kind of cool, though.
Yeah, but it didn't take off because it was just too early. And most people were not like...
It's like Redbox, but you're ordering something?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
But yeah, so he did a lot of stuff where he was just too early.
Sure.
Like the technology wasn't there, or the public wasn't there for that yet and wasn't ready for that. Most of his ideas that failed early ended up coming back later and being a big success.
Got it.
But he also was just, he mentioned the reason why he worked.
He actually wrote a book that didn't really take off. It was too early.
It was before books.
No, he wrote a book. I mean, like books existed, but he wrote a book about a vampire in Washington. Right, and this vampire meets this high school girl, and for some reason the vampire is sparkly. People didn't like it.
Yeah. She was already in love with the werewolf, though.
It was too early. Well, he thought it was a werewolf.
It was actually just
it's a rat. No, that's not a werewolf.
That's not a werewolf.
That's a rat.
What a werewolf is? Yeah.
Jeez.
Would you like to meet my dog? Yeah, I've got 3 adorable dogs.
Okay. That's a rat.
Those are all rats.
Those are possums.
Those are giant rats.
I think you're describing Alvin and the Chipmunks. Like, spot on.
That's where I got the inspiration, because they were singing all the time.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. No. But yeah, he had a problem with spending. And that's why he worked at the amusement park, because he realized if he wasn't working, he was spending money.
Yes.
And so when he made a bunch of money, he bought all these planes, he bought a bunch of houses, he got into competitive sailboating.
Me and him are very similar. If I'm not working, I'm spending.
And so what's crazy is he started these 2 giant companies.
Sure.
But he doesn't have a lot. I mean, he's still very rich. But compared to a lot of people who start companies that size, he's not even close because he spends
He
so
didn't
much.
invest it. Yeah, he didn't
and when he does invest it, it usually doesn't work out because he's just investing in all these crazy things that
Sure.
are too early, whatever.
Like he bought Twitter.
Yeah, he started this thing called Twitter Red. Didn't take off.
Didn't take off.
Didn't take
You
off.
know?
Too early.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. So he's an interesting guy. I guess there's more, but you're done, so it's fine.
I didn't say I was done. I was just saying it's been how long have we recorded? What's your timer on?
An hour and 2, but we cut out
That's what
some.
I'm saying.
We're cutting some of that.
Okay.
I don't know. It's fine. There's nothing else that's super interesting. He's just got some other business ventures. Got into competitive racing. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, he was friends with John McAfee. He said that Nolan is one of the brightest minds in cyber technology. In his career, he founded more than 20 high-tech companies.
Why do you sound like the DJ from the wedding right now? Nolan was one of the brightest.
I guess the last really interesting thing we should hit about him is
Sure. Fiddle Off.
No, I really want to hit this. I want this in the episode. This is interesting. This is really interesting.
So
I really want
long.
this. This one's an interesting one.
I'm here against my will. I don't want to do this
after
anymore.
night. You have to sit in the cruiser. The sun's down. You have to sit in the cruiser. You were going too fast. All right, ready?
Yeah.
All right. So here's what happened. He talked it out in
Can you
Atari.
at least do a fake Fiddle Off then?
Yeah. Fiddle it
It's in the notes.
Fiddle it in for a
All
second,
right.
and then fiddle it. Yeah, you know. So here's.
Fiddle it on for a second.
So here's the thing. So
I don't want to do this.
When he worked at Atari,
Okay.
when he owned Atari,
I was going to say.
when he owned Atari, there was something. The tech world. This was in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
The tech world at the time was very tight laced.
Sure.
It was 9 to 5, white shirts, ties. Like
Yes.
it was strict, right? Mm-hmm. And what he realized is he's like all these engineers. It's the 70s at the time. He's like all these engineers are coming in here with their white shirts and the ties, 9 to 5, like acting like super professional. And he's like, I know on the weekend they're going out to the desert and they're wearing these weird hippie things and just getting high all weekend. And he's like, I don't want you to pretend. And so he's like, he got rid of all those processes. Mm-hmm. He got rid of the times that they had to be there, the 9 to 5 schedule. He got rid of the dress code. He put a tap in his office so people could come in and like get a beer if they needed to talk to him.
Nice.
And so because of that, Steve Jobs loved the work environment. And Steve took that idea to Apple and made Apple what it is. And now every company has copied Apple. And so really he was the first in the 70s to be one of these
They had a disco ball. Like, had everything.
to be one of these Silicon Valley corporate places that focuses on culture and like has these activities and the beanbag chairs and all the weird seating and the weird
And you had to
flexible
watch
schedule.
robot animals play every day.
And what he said
We had a live band in the break room.
he knows these aren't coyotes, right? They're just sitting there playing The Day the Music Died.
Well, during the Christmas season, they play Christmas songs, you know?
I hate that you're moving. And so you're talking so quiet. And when you move, you barely hear it.
There you go. Oh.
So, but his
I couldn't sing it. We don't have the copyright.
you're right. If it's quiet enough, they won't know.
Couldn't sing this public domain song.
Lawyers can't hear below 30 decibels
Yeah.
or whatever. I don't know what's a normal decibel number, but they can't hear below that. So if you need to say anything illegal, say it quiet. Wait, sorry, hold on. If you need to say anything illegal, say it quiet.
I'll whisper back.
No, okay, no. So they even
What else is there?
they even went to
Yeah,
go get
keep going.
They even
never stop. Keep going.
Their medical benefits.
I want so much more.
They went to go get their medical benefits, and when they went, he had budgeted amount for health insurance, and they came back with a number because their entire workforce was so young. It was super cheap, and he's like, "That's way less than I budgeted." And so he's like, "Why don't you guys add dental and eye and all this other stuff to it?" And so then they came back and gave them this huge benefit package. Because everyone was so young, it was super cheap. And so then it became a thing where it was like, oh, you need to offer all these benefits. You need to have this work culture.
Oh, yeah.
It's really their fault. You're looking at me like maybe fault wasn't a good
Tim always reveals himself to be a Scrooge.
I'm not saying it's their fault. I'm saying
okay, Ebenezer.
They were forerunners in that. Their disco ball in their office, their culture, their good benefits.
Yeah, you can play Pong during your breaks.
I watched an interview. He said after
God. We'll have all the games. We'll have the
games
music. We'll have the vibes. But as soon as someone brings up Jesus, it's over for you.
But he talked about in an interview, he said, after we unveiled this benefits package, he said the next week, I kid you not, every woman on our team had braces. He said every single one.
Wow.
So
did I ever tell you what I told my or I asked my orthodontist when I first got my braces?
What?
I said, if I kiss a girl she has braces, will they get stuck together?
I'm pretty sure everyone asked that.
Did they?
I think that's a question they field a lot.
It's a real fear.
Yeah, because I'm saying that because I remember asking that question, and they pitched back quickly.
They were like, no.
They were like, yeah. They said, yeah, definitely. Yeah, they told me definitely don't go kissing any girls.
Oh, you went to the youth pastor orthodontist.
That's what it was called. Youth
don't
pastor
even make eye
orthodontist.
contact. Yeah.
Yeah, my contacts.
I went to a secular orthodontist. And they were like, kiss all the girls you want.
I got my contacts, and my eye doctor was like, yeah, if you kiss a girl, your contacts are going to get stuck to her.
It was another 10 years before I got my first kiss, though. Didn't have to worry about it. Tell you that. Didn't have to worry about it at all.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Anyways, so sure. You've wanted to fiddle this off for months. So, Chucky, take it away.
Hey, thank you so much for watching that episode of Things I Learned Last Night. If you want to watch more episodes, you can do that here, or there's other highlights. Please make sure you subscribe to this channel. We release new episodes every single Tuesday, which means if you didn't like this episode and you're still here somehow, you can go back and watch many of the other ones we've done. And if you want to help us do more of those episodes, please consider joining us on Patreon, where if you're like, I just can't wait for another one, well, Patreon has next week's right now. So you can do all of that at TILLN.com. Please subscribe. Thanks again for watching.